Hey everyone, down in the low country of South Carolina. I had to come down here this weekend to make sure that my house did not float away with this latest hurricane we had. Fortunately for me, not too bad. A little bit of flooding in the garage, some debris around the yard, but all in all, everything on this house outside of Charleston, Seabrook, Kiowa area for a number of years, and wanted to make sure that everything was okay. But good news, this area wasn't hurt too bad. Today I want to talk to you about a few things here. We did a survey of our community, asking folks what was on their mind, what kind of questions they had, and we got a number of responses back. I do appreciate that. I'm going to highlight maybe 6 or 7 of the most common ones. What we actually get asked a fair amount. If you're an investor in the local community, I'm sure you've answered these questions too a number of times. So stay tuned and hopefully we can give you some good answers. Let's start out with a very common question, and that is where do I begin? Where do I start my real estate journey, my real estate career? And the very easy answer to that is you got to sit back for a minute and you got to figure out what exactly you want to do. One of the great benefits of real estate investment is so vast, meaning there's so many different ways, so many different avenues you can go. Let me highlight 3 or 4 of the most common ones. Number one, you could begin to real estate journey as a buy, renovate, and sell investor. Now, buying houses, you're fixing up and you're selling them for chunks of money. In our local community, anywhere from 30, 40, 50 and up is a typical profit in these. If you're in higher ranges around the country, you're going to see them a little higher. If you're in lower price ranges, you're going to see them a little lower. But you might want to do that. You might want a landlord. This is not a typical way for people to get started. People that have jobs, people that have other careers, they want to get involved in real estate. They want to diversify their portfolio. Maybe they're saving for retirement. Maybe you're saving for a college education. So you're getting into the rental game, maybe residential or maybe even small commercial. Great avenue to get started in a real estate investment community. And we have a lot of people in our community that do that very thing. You get appreciation over time and of course cash flow. You might also start as what we call a wholesaler. This is another common way for people to get started. Some people stay in this arena for the balance of their careers where you're identifying property, you're placing it under contract, and then you're selling that contract fee. You can make anywhere from 5, 10, 15, 20 and upwards of money depending on your deal and depending on your contract. So buy, renovate, and sell. You could be a landlord, you could be a wholesaler, or in some cases, a lot of you might just want to be in a business that surrounds the real estate investment world. In other words, being a realtor, being a loan officer, being a home inspector. Great avenues to generate income, and then maybe you pick off a certain project here or there as a wholesaler or a landlord or a buy, renovate, and sell type investor. So those are kind of common ones. There's many more. You could get into the debt business where you're buying and selling performing notes or non-performing notes. There's a whole arena of commercial real estate. So there's lots of different ways that you can get involved in real estate investment. So my advice to you is sit back, maybe get on YouTube, maybe get on social media, kind of different investors, what's good, what's bad, how's your personality, what kind of capital do you have, what kind of experience do you have, what kind of time do you have, and want to make this a full-time gig or a part-time gig. So those are all the questions that you need to answer in order to get that direction, that avenue, and then really surround yourself with the right people, because your networking, your capital raise, all those things are going to depend on what you decide to do as far as a real estate investor. All right, let's move on. The other ones that we get often is where's the best places to invest nationally, and folks, again, this goes back to our very first question. What do you want to do? There's better markets in the country to for long-term rentals than maybe the Washington, D.C. metro area. Maybe there's a market or two that you like to be a wholesaler. Again, you can do that virtually. You can literally buy and sell real estate all across the country from your hometown. Or maybe there's better markets for buy, renovate, and sell. I happen to think our general area, the Washington, D.C. metro area, is a fantastic area for this. We have a lot of older housing stock inside the Beltway. We have people coming and going. We have a lot of population and a lot of good housing stock to buy, renovate, and sell houses. So let me answer this specifically now. Let's say that you're looking for rentals in the D.C. metro area. Again, an expensive area. But areas in D.C. that do well over time, if you find the right project, are places like Capitol Hill, places like the Navy Yard, places that are changing and always have a demand, are good areas for long-term rentals. 2 outer suburbs. I picked up a house last year in an area called Bryan's Road, Maryland. A great little house. Picked it up for $150,000. Put $60,000, $70,000 in it. So we redid the house, new roof, new systems, new actually septic field, new windows, new siding, new interior. And I have about 220,000 invested. The house appraised for 360,000, and I generate $2,400 a month in rent. Good, solid, long-term rental property. So you're always keeping your radar up. You need to understand your numbers. You need to understand the analysis. And then when you see one, whether it's in the city or in the suburbs, in the country, you jump on it. Now, if we're going nationally, some of the areas that always pop up and have popped up again are some smaller, more affordable cities where the housing prices aren't as extreme, where people can still buy a home, but they have jobs, they have population. Places like Columbus, Ohio is always popping up. Other parts of the Midwest, like Indianapolis, Indiana. You have Rochester, New York, constantly up as a good place to invest in long-term rentals. Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. You go south, places like Nashville, again, getting expensive. Parts of Texas, parts of Georgia, North Carolina. So there's a lot of these markets. They're kind of second-tier cities, if you will, meaning population growth, but they have good affordable housing still, and they have jobs. So look for those areas if you want to invest long-term. But honestly, folks, and this is only my opinion, I believe anywhere you are, as long as there's activity going on, as long as you see house sales, it's a good area for real estate investment long-term. One more final note on this question of where to invest, as far as from a rental standpoint. The other thing you have to determine is, do you want cash flow or do you want appreciation, or do you want both? Now and I just fell into this, I've had a little bit of both. I've had appreciation because I've invested in higher price areas, and then I'm beginning to get cash flow over many, many years of paying down the principal, buying them at a discount, and creating some cash flow. But there are other areas, for example, an area like Salisbury, Maryland on the Eastern Shore. That tends to be a little bit better cash flow, but you're not going to get as much growth over time. So you kind of have to pick your poison, want to go. Some people like that cash flow. They don't care what the value of the house is. They just want cash flow. I have a friend that literally retired from the IT business, owns 20 properties around the country. They're not great houses, if you will. They're not showcase Architectural Digest houses, but they're great little cash flowing properties that have allowed him to retire at the age mid-50s. He's traveling the country, traveling the world, and he gets this cash flow on a monthly basis. Sounds pretty good. So again, pick your poison there. Do you want appreciation? Do you want a little less cash flow because you're investing in high price areas, or are you going strictly for cash flow? So hope that helps you out a little bit. Moving on. Another question that we get quite a bit, and we got it 2 or 3 times here, is about money, is about raising capital. And again, this is a big part of real estate investment. I would say probably the second most important. Number one is finding deals. Whatever area of real estate investment you choose, you want to have the ability to find business, find deals. Second is you got to raise capital. Folks, we're not doing all this with our own money. It's literally impossible to do if you get any kind of scale. So you have to raise capital. What are some of the best ways? Number one, I got questions about what are the best banks in areas. Well, folks, really, if you're going the bank route, and I encourage you to start doing that, you really need to look for smaller regional banks, not the big boys, not Wells Fargo, not Bank of America's. Go to the smaller regional banks in your area, your county, your state, and start having conversations with them about what you're trying to do, what the requirements are, what can you get a credit card there to start, can you open up a savings account, is there lines of credit available, can you do some refis once you've placed a good tenant in a property. Have those conversations with smaller regional banks. Number two, raising capital is creating that private bank. We did a video on 4 or 5 most popular ways to raise capital. Private bank, raising capital from personal people, people that are within your network, or are a level above your network. What I mean is maybe your buddy has a friend that owns a very successful small business and they got capital to invest. You're going to connect with those people, and depending on the avenue you go, you're going to structure that financing so they can get a nice return and you can have monies to invest in real estate. Again, you can structure this so many different ways. You could just pay them a flat out interest rate, 12%, 10% annual return, or you can give them a little less. Maybe you give them 5 or 6% and you give them a part of the deal. Or maybe moving on, you don't give them any rate of return, you bring them in as a partner and you do deals as they're the capital partner and you're the operations partner. So raising private capital is important. Getting with smaller regional banks. creating partnerships, people with money, but they don't have the desire to go out and look for these deals like you do. Hard money lenders, people that have capital. Now that's going to cost you a little bit more, but if you have a great opportunity to make $40,000 or $50,000, who cares if you give up, 10 to 15,000 of that money in order to do those deals. So be aware of those things. Those are really the cornerstones. And folks, we do an exercise in my mentoring program where I create literally 22 to 25 different ways to raise capital, from smaller amounts to larger amounts. But it really revolves around four biggest ones in my mind are personal, private bank, finding money from personal people, having a good hard money lender in your back pocket, having a good relationship with a couple banks, having the ability to understand owner financing, some financing. So there's lots of different ways you can do this. Focus on a few, get good at it, and really focus on raising capital for real estate investments. Another question that I got for three other people this go around is, should I become a realtor? If I want to invest in real estate, should I become a realtor? Folks, I thought about some advantages and disadvantages, but when I really thought about it, anybody that I know is full-time and is really active in real estate, most of them have a real estate license. Now with that license, you do have to do some disclosure. You have to let people know that you're licensed. You do have to adhere to some different rules and license, but the advantages are great. You get access to values, the multiple listing service, you get to network with other realtors, you get some good continuing education to keep on the real estate industry. So if you really are committed to real estate as your career, maybe not as a part-time person, but as a full-time real estate investor, I don't think having a real estate license is really a bad idea. It takes a little time. You got to take some classes, you got to take a few tests. You got to keep the license current. You got a little bit of investment every year. But I think overall, it's a good idea to get a real estate license if you're in this full-time and this is your full-time gig and this is what you want to do. You don't have to have it. I do know some investors that don't have it, never want it, don't want to put up with it. So there's no right or wrong answer here. But in my opinion, having a real estate license as a full-time real estate investor can be more of an advantage than a disadvantage. All right, let me go on to some other things. Oh, contractors. A lot of times contractors, as a landlord, you might need a few contractors that maintain the property. Certainly as a buy, renovate, and sell guy, you got to create a whole team of contractors. What's the best way to find some good contractors? I get this question a fair amount. Folks, the best way is through referrals. Referrals from other investors. Start networking on social media and in-person events and start asking other investors about certain people that they might have that they're willing to share. Again, I have a tremendous landscaper, cleanout, plumber. I can't keep those guys busy 40 to 60 hours a week. It's a job-by-job basis. So I'm more than happy to create or refer those people out to you in order for you to use them. Again, letting them know that I've referred you, so when I come back to them, I can get a little better prices and so forth. But finding that contractor, finding that person that's reliable, that's affordable. Now, not cheap, but they can't be AA, meaning so expensive you do a deal. They got to be, generally they're smaller companies. Generally they're a couple people. They got a couple hands or trucks on the road. They don't have tremendous overhead. Do good work. Many cases they're licensed. We can get access to license to get permits if you need them and so forth. But creating those good contractors really can come from a network of investors in your area that will be willing to share those. Also realtors. Realtor offices have different people that use that in some cases they'll share. Having good contractors will make your life a lot easier. You don't always have to check up on them. You know their prices are going to be fair. They're going to make money, believe me. And prices have gone up, as many of you know, but they're going to be able to get the job done. And then let's end on this one here. One of the questions I get is, can I do this business part-time? Is it viable? Everyone hears about all these side hustles. People that are making X amount of dollars a month do a side hustle. Is real estate a side hustle? We certainly can do this part-time. I know many people that are deals meaning maybe they're a realtor and they're generating a couple $100,000 in commissions, but they fall into or they find one or two renovations a year. And on top of that 200 in commission, they might make an extra 30, 40, 50 grand on each deal. That's significant, right? But they do that. Another example, someone like my worked in the corporate world. My brothers invested in real estate through me and do a couple of rental properties to diversify his portfolio to give him some cash flow and some appreciation. He's invested in notes before, so you can do this part-time. It does take some work, it takes some effort, it takes some focus, meaning you have to decide on that avenue, and then when you have that part-time time, those hours, whether it's 10, 15, 20 hours a week, you're honed in on what you're trying to find and what you're trying to create with your real estate investment activities. So you absolutely can do this part-time. So I hope these questions helped you, and maybe you had some of the same ones. We're always open to questions. You can just email us or text us. I'd be happy to get back to you and answer some of those questions you might have. Real estate is a wonderful business. It's not going away. It's changing. There's constantly opportunity, and getting involved in it either part-time or full-time, I can promise you, been doing this for, going on 30 years now, I can promise you that the rewards are great. It does take some work. It's not get rich overnight, but getting some of these questions answers and formulating your plan and really focusing on the time that you have to spend will generate some great benefits. So I hope a few of these questions helped you. Have a great rest of the evening. If we can help you in any way, please reach out and let us know.